Hello everyone. Um, Welcome back to my channel, Connecting Dots Counseling. We're here again, and today again with Dr. Norris from Flying Pig Psychology. And today we chose to talk about relationships. We, as two therapists, we see how much with our clients, how much relationship still comes up.
Big issue.
Right. And we were kind of, talking about relationship, it's kind of vague. There's a lot to bring in. But we want just to touch some highlights, what we think can be beneficial. Feel free to make any comments or questions so we can follow through that. So when it comes to relationship, we're talking first of all about being with a partner, right? Either with a friend or with someone that you live on long term. And sometimes we see that there is an issue with communication, that we feel like the other person is not hearing us, or there's some issues with patience. We're kind of done that phase of keep hearing the same stuff, right? Where are you?
For the couples I've seen, I think 0 times not heard that the issue they're working or wanting, at least thinking they want to work on, is communication. I've yet to have a couple show up and be like, our communication's awesome, we just don't like each other, or we just don't agree. So communication's always, I would say almost always, the issue. Some people I've met do actually have reasonably good communication skills, they just actually disagree. But again, that's more the exception than the rule. It's most often that there is a discrepancy in communication style. A lot of times the things that initially brought them together, that opposites attract stuff, over time, especially if it's in a way they communicate or in a lifestyle, introvert, extrovert, clean, organized, a little less clean and less organized, those things that are initially relieving and refreshing can become a bit of a grind. So
right.
They get coded or called communication issues when, yeah, there's a communication component to that, but that's not necessarily the only thing going on.
Right. And you mentioned agreement and disagreement. So definitely when it comes to two people living together for a lengthy period of time, it's hard to find things to agree on. And I think it starts by knowing that it's okay. We're not supposed to agree on that. And when we are aware of it, I think it lowers the stress level of, I need to prove my point.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's
the I need to be right mentality is really problematic.
Exactly. And we see that in relationships, that who's going to win this time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when it comes to partnership, it's not necessarily about who's winning. It's actually on the contrary. How can we help each other live as peacefully as we can at that period of time? And sometimes we do not know. And the best thing is to ask, right? What will help me to understand you? Or what do you need me right now, right? Because this time frame change from time to time.
One of the things is timing of coming to therapy. Like a lot of times couples come, they're like, you know what, finally we're ready to do therapy. And this often happens right after somebody says, I want a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about these different stages. If people can notice that there's problems earlier, it's just a plug for mental health in general, like earlier is better. Because if it's down to one person has already emotionally or maybe physically left the relationship, that is a lot harder spot to start doing therapy.
Definitely.
And then yeah, that person may already be blocked. The other person's so highly defensive and shut down that it just is a lot harder and longer process, and the likelihood of a successful or good outcome definitely goes down. So just as you're talking about these phases, like right. If you start noticing earlier on, hey, we're having some of these same arguments, but it's not so bad. That might be a thought. It's not bad enough. We don't need help yet. That's the time to actually be coming, and don't postpone it. No, we'll do it someday. It's not bad enough. Well, we're not like so-and-so that I saw go through a divorce. No, now's the time. not the later.
Right, because we become more defensive.
Yep.
We're becoming more exhausted by, ooh, we're trying. It's like driving on neutral, right? That how many effort while we're going uphill. So sometimes we're kind of feeling, hey, we're going backwards, right? So yeah, asking help, sometimes just like checking things, and then you're good to go to manage by yourself. Yep. To see things from a different perspective. So someone that is more objective and can listen to you. And I think part of coming to therapy as a couple, I think people, I mean, maybe I'm kind of shifting a bit, but I think people are afraid for someone else to see that those arguments, or knowing
their
that
marriage or partnership is messed up. Look at them.
Right. Or what's the point of coming and arguing? So I think it's important to understand that when you come to couple therapy, it's not about, I want to hear you arguing. We are actually on the point of listening and hearing from you what's there that you're not seeing. And we want to give you hope. We want to give you kind of more objective perspective of how things can be approached so you can change and work on them.
Which is what therapy is. It's a lot of change.
Mm-hmm.
There can be an acceptance part as well, but largely it's what can I control and do differently in myself that may make my part of the relationship better. And if a partner's doing the same thing, that's great. If it's like, I'm going to go to couples therapy because I need you to change that one thing about you, I don't have any control over changing Petit in that regard. So
exactly.
It's what can I control and change and influence in myself, and hopefully my partner is open to doing that as well.
Right, because we are impacting each other. Even if we think, oh, that's not my problem, still, you have a piece in it. We're not here to blame, but looking what's there that we can work on, because you're right. I cannot change you, I can only change me. So it's just, again, enlightening ourselves. What we can do differently to make that work. So yeah, I think it's a lot about also being embarrassed that, ooh, we're going to couple therapy. What does it mean?
And I do want your opinion. I think that's gotten less, and I'm going to use the word stigmatized in the last maybe 20 years. I'd be interested in your thoughts.
I see that, yeah, definitely. People are much more approachable.
Yeah.
But I think it comes to, oh, no, I don't need that. You need that. So you should go and do some individual therapy. And that can also be kind of what's the block of wanting to do that work.
It's an interesting point. Like, some couples show up, and I have recommended, you know what, let's actually pause this while one or maybe both go work on some individual stuff. And I've also had some individuals come in and I'm like, you know what, 90% of what we're talking about is couples related or relationship related. Maybe it's time to refer to another provider and actually do some couples work while we pause this, and obviously concurrently is fine as well.
Right. And I think part of it is to see us as, we don't just eat, right? We need to sleep, right? It's kind of having different kind of point of view and learning about ourselves from different angle, right? So we need to sleep, we need physical activity, we need to eat, right? We're not just living on one thing and that's it, we're good to go. That's kind of where I'm trying to put that in a different perspective. So yeah, we're talking about who's kind of more overwhelmed or exhausted by coming to therapy, but coming to therapy can really enlighten things that, oh, maybe if we learn to do something of how to communicate, of more of saying kind of I statement, right? Instead of throwing
you and you always.
Yeah.
Generalizations and accusatory statements
are right, are not helpful.
I'll ask you, like, if I come at you and go, you're always such a slob.
Right.
What happens to your listening? What happens to your listening?
Right? I would kind of block and be defensive.
Defensive.
Right? And when you're defensive, you're not really there. You're not really able to see things in a wider perspective. So we want to be aware of that. And when you're saying you're showing your responsibility and willing to say, hey, we're here as a team. We're working together to make this place better or to work in a better way. So we're talking about here um, about kind of couples, right? And there's always that element of kids coming in,
Oh, yeah.
right? Ooh, they're listening, so we better not argue.
Oh, I thought you meant like pregnancy and new babies.
Oh, yeah, I jumped. You're right. Right. So when it comes to, it's better to go backwards a bit. Yeah, having babies, right? There's a lot of stress coming in because the equations shifted and
Yes.
changed.
The dynamic is shifting.
The dynamic change.
One thing I tell clients is don't make any life-changing decisions, divorces, really where I'm going with it, in that first 18 months because it's such a shift. And that's not just the first child, like if it's a second or third, because each time, like you're saying, that dynamic just changes when you add a new person in, even if it's a third child.
Right.
The older two are now not
Mhm.
the only, and the second who was the baby, and now they're the middle. Like, don't make any life-changing decisions short of we just have to because there's like major violence. But in the absence of major deal breaker type things, don't make any life-changing decisions because the likelihood of it being challenging is pretty great.
Right. Let me jump
Yep.
to how we meet, right? When we are dating,
Ah, yeah.
right? We missed that.
I
kind of
think we
element.
should do a whole video sometime,
Right? We
just
should.
on dating.
We'll do that
Maybe
for sure.
a series, but
Yeah, I would love that. But we're just giving some highlights about that. So when we're dating, we're usually kind of keeping things on the surface level.
best behavior.
Best behavior, trying to show the best of us, not going into deep, meaningful questions. So we're not going to ask, how are you dealing with money, right? Or what's your point of view about having children? It's like, it's too embarrassing yet to get there. I understand that. However, we believe it's important to find ways to incorporate that in our dynamic at the beginning, getting to know each other, not just by what color or what TV do you
What's
like
your favorite
to watch.
TV show? What's your favorite band? Those
Right.
are fine
Great.
questions.
Great.
But if that's it, that's not going to be sufficient.
Right, because those issues will come up later. I mean, about raising children, how to deal with money, religion, right? Those are big, heavy elements that I understand the fear of addressing them. Yet when you learn that I'm just asking, right? I'm not here to judge you, but I just want to see what we have in common. And if we don't, how can we bridge that? How can we work together? So that's something I think it's important to bring in.
Having awareness of your deal breakers and red flags. Like,
yes,
you said religion. Let's go there. Like, I may not ask on a very first date, hey, what religion are you? A lot of times on apps and stuff, it'll even tell you,
Mhm.
which is nice. But if that for you is an issue, like this is critically important to me, I would think you would want to figure that out sooner rather than later instead of getting your heart involved and then on the 16th date, for example, then finding out we have a problem. Well, now what do you do with it? It's a deal breaker, or red flag perhaps, but I also have this emotional connection. You actually want to figure some of that stuff out earlier.
Right.
And it can still be done respectfully.
Exactly. It's
not like
embarrassing.
what religion are you?
Exactly. You can find what works for you, or again, saying, hey, I'm, so and so. I believe this is my belief system, and how are you with that? Right? It's just to show curiosity, and not in a kind of a judgmental way. Just learning. And you're right. It's really the best thing is to start exploring that in the beginning and not waiting till
Too
you're
long.
deep inside the relationship, and then it's like, ooh, what do I do? So yeah, it's
You and I asked the
uncomfortable.
exact same question. Now what do I do? Or ooh, what now? Like we both had the same response.
Right.
If you wait too long to figure these questions out.
Exactly. And with that being said, still we can figure it out, right? But we want to minimize that or try to prevent those kind of unspoken subjects that are crucial in our daily life. We also think about how I lost my train of thoughts for a second. So we talked about children, right? How to bring children part of that, right? That we're all rainbow and unicorns, right? We don't want to see the kids to see that we're arguing.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Gotcha.
That's part of life. It's okay.
If you have children in the home and you're arguing, how to navigate that.
Exactly. First of all, it's how are you arguing?
Yep.
Right? And also making up, right? How are you coming and, oh, forgive me, I did that, right? Coming, admitting that you've done something that caused that. So the kids will listen. So the kids need closure. We all need, our brain needs that understanding, a whole circle of what's going on. So yeah, when you start an argument and you're just leaving and not coming back to resolve it, when the kids are there kind of witnessing that,
it's called stonewalling. Like if you have a disagreement about a topic and one just goes away and never brings it back up, it's like building a wall with stones in your relationship. I'll do it between us here, and all of a sudden there's no relationship left because there's a block.
Exactly. And you mentioned that before, those words of always, right? Before you jumping, breathe and saying, not really always, it's when, then. So you're narrowing the whole argument, and you bring the other person to be able to listen to you better than saying you're always like that, right? And it's not just the words you're using, but it's also your facial expression, your energy. Are you at the tone of voice, the tone of your body?
Timing.
Definitely.
Timing
Tell more.
Last thing I just personally like is to walk in the house at the end of the day after a work day at the office and be met with an immediate complaint or criticism. Understandably, sometimes it is indeed that urgent. Did you know we had a car accident? We got to get, okay, that meet me there. But if it's like, you know what, I don't like it when you do this. Whether or not there's an always or nevers involved, timing is really important. Like, at least let me get inside to get my shoes off, put my bag down, compose myself, and then be like, hey, we need to talk about this.
So you brought something, unspoken rules.
Yep.
Right?
That for me would be an unspoken rule.
Exactly.
Don't meet me at the door with an immediate problem.
But if you're not to bring that up, we cannot know it's an issue.
Yep.
Right? So this is where we can sit down together and create that date where we can bring things on the table. Like, I'm bothered when I'm just stepping in the door and you throwing all those kind of needs. It's like, I need 5 minutes to myself, 10 minutes, right? And allow me that. So again, we're talking about assuming. Oh, you know me for so long. I'm sure you assume. Don't assume.
Yeah.
Ask.
Explicitly.
Exactly. Because when we're assuming, we're making things much more complicated. So it's definitely bringing that also to, oh wait, I need a couple of minutes. Okay, I need to breathe.
That and that's for me. That may not be for you.
Exactly.
You may not be that way at all.
No.
Again, that would be on me to bring up to a partner or potential partner of, I guess I would want to have had it happen first a few times. Like, I'm not just going to preemptively throw that out there, be like, don't hassle me at the door. That's a little too much, too soon. But
more maybe, I need more time.
I would appreciate.
I appreciate if you'll give me.
Yeah, give me
but
a
if
moment.
You're saying I need, it's hard to argue with that, fight with that, right? This is what I need. And again, we're here to do that together. So how can you help me provide that to myself?
But folks don't typically show up to couples therapy at this phase. This has gone on where either, and I'll use myself, I have not expressed that for a chronic amount of time, but still have the built frustration and potential resentment in place. Or I have said it, and I'm going to use you, and you've continued to meet me at the door, and all of a sudden I start coming home later. She gets more upset. Again, this wall is being built between us. Once that person's like, you know what, I'm done, 1 foot out the door, that's so many times when folks show up, it's like, come 6 months sooner. Come 6 months sooner.
Yeah.
Even if it hurts the ego just a little bit, it hurts a lot less than the potential divorce and the impact to kids and so forth.
And I think people are afraid also that, oh, I need therapy, it's lengthy, it's forever. 1 session, you can have a huge awareness about yourself in 1 session.
If early enough.
If early enough, right? And actually, that's the tricky piece. When you keep delaying that, you will have to have more sessions. But when you catch it on time, you will be impressed that by 1 or 2 sessions, it's like, oh, we're good, thank you. And now, maybe we can work on that. So you bring things up of what you want to work on.
I feel like we could talk about
yes,
this super long.
Exactly.
I got like maybe 3 book just suggestions to throw out there, or topics. One of them, and we didn't specifically talk about it, but The 5 Love Languages. I think it's a really good book. Every mental health provider knows about it. Just for context, it is ultimately written by a Christian. If that's offensive to you, it may not be a great fit, but it's not terribly religiously based and used pretty commonly. Another fellow you might want to be aware of is John Gottman. He's, I don't know if you'd say, but probably the best known in the couples realm right now. Once again, that's John Gottman. He's got tons of books. The green one, which is 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work, is the one I personally use the most.
Yes.
And I have another one for when folks are in this darker place of like, do I want to stay or do I want to go? I'll pull it off. It's Too Good to Leave, Too Bad to Stay. I know it's a little glary, but it goes through just a bunch of questions for folks that are in this more stuck spot. Maybe they've done therapy or they've done therapy a handful of times, but it's like, there's some of these great attributes, but there's really some of these crummy ones. I do highly recommend that book. Do you have anything you want to?
You just mentioned one thing that brought to my mind. When it comes to couple therapy, make sure that the therapist is more objective and I'm not biased. If you see that sometimes, it's just leaned to one side, make that a note.
I'm going to counter that one just a little bit, because sometimes people want to come in and be heard. Actually, I think everybody does, but they want to be told that, you know what, Gatit, you're the right one in this marriage, and your partner is not. And when they don't hear that, they sometimes think the therapist is taking the other side. So just be cautious with that. I agree. If objectively it's like you feel like they actively dislike you, I'm going to go exactly what you say. But just because they don't take your side doesn't mean that they're not necessarily right or helpful.
Exactly.
That may be a check-in for yourself as well.
Exactly. It's a way to, think about what they're saying.
Sorry to
No,
add that.
I think it's important. Yes. All right. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Just to make a note, thank you for having us in your office today.
Absolutely.
It was lovely. Again, make any comments or questions below, subscribe, and we're here for you. All right. Thank you very much.